All right, you history buffs, gather round. It's story time. And today we're diving into the big one, the mother of all wars, the granddaddy of them all, the colossal, the monumental, the World War II. So grab your helmets and flak jackets, because we're about to take a whirlwind tour through the most chaotic, catastrophic, crazy-making years of the 20th century. And you won't believe the jaw-dropping twists and turns that we'll witness together. Chapter 1. The Road to War. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, or in this case, terrible dictators. Let's start our tale with a trio of bad boys who changed the world, courtesy of a very special delivery. Picture this: 3 lonely, power-hungry fellas, each nursing their country's wounds from the last World War and World War I. And boy, did they have some grievances. We're talking Germany, Italy, and Japan, a trio so tight they could make the mafia look like the monkeys. And their leaders, well, let's call them special. You've got Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini, and Emperor Hirohito. Now, these guys weren't your average Joes. They were the kind of neighbors you'd call if you needed your lawn mowed, but then they never left and took over your house and killed your family. These dudes had visions, dreams of empire that smelled a little fishy. Hitler wanted to unite all Germans under one flag. Mussolini dreamed of reviving the Roman Empire, and Hirohito, well, he wanted a piece of that Chinese takeout you ordered. But you know, the usual dictator stuff, really nothing to see here, except the way they planned to get it was less than kosher. Enter appeasement, the art of giving in to bullies because you hope it'll shut them up. But let me tell you, it didn't work. Instead of keeping the peace, appeasement just emboldened these angry young men, and their countries started flexing their militaries like teenagers at a high school dance. But there was one dance these wannabe John Travoltas didn't know: diplomacy. They thought they could just waltz right into someone else's space and take what they wanted. But guess what? This ain't no disco. You gotta ask nicely, or at least throw some cash around. But no, these guys went in guns blazing, or should I say tanks. And then on September 1st, 1939, everything kicked off. Hitler's army rolled into Poland, kicking up more dust than a NASCAR race. And just 2 days later, Britain and France jumped into action. Boom! World War II had officially begun. Chapter 2, the Axis powers vs. the Allies. All right, so now that the ball was rolling, let's meet the players on the field. First up, the baddies, the Axis powers, a gang of nations led by those 3 bigwigs we met earlier. Then rounding out the crew were Germany's buddies, Austria, Hungary, Italy's cronies, and Japan's Yakuza buddies. Now, these guys might have been united under the big bad tree, but they were a motley crew. Germany was all about that military might, churning out tanks and planes like a well-oiled machine. Italy was in it for the aesthetics, dreaming of a Roman Empire comeback, while Japan was all about that Asian domination. But despite their differences, they formed an alliance that would make any power broker blush. Next up, the goodies, the Allies, led by Britain, France, and later joined by the USSR, the USA, and a whole host of other nations. They were a bit of a ragtag bunch too. Britain was hanging on by a thread, France was feeling a little froggy, and the USSR was, well, let's just say they had a surprise up their sleeve. But when push came to shove, they all came together to form an alliance that would make any kindergarten playdate look like child's play. Chapter 3. A World on Fire. As the war kicked into high gear, the world became a literal battleground. Let's hit some of the hotspots. First stop, Europe. This was a chessboard of cat and mouse as Germany's blitzkrieg tactics sent shockwaves across the continent. Before you could say blitzkrieg, they'd conquered much of Western Europe, leaving France in tatters. But hold up, because the Soviets had something to say about that. They entered the fray in 1941, looking to carve out their own piece of the pie. Suddenly, Germany was fighting on 2 fronts, trying to juggle both the Soviet threat and the pesky Allies. Talk about a balancing act. Then we got Asia, where Japan was making moves. After gobbling up much of Asia, they set their sights on the Pacific. Soon, American and Japanese forces were engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse across the vast Pacific. But the real fireworks started with the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. When Japan attacked the U.S. naval base in Hawaii, it was like a sucker punch. The U.S. was caught off guard, and soon America was in the war. And let's not forget Africa, where British and Italian forces were locked in a fierce battle of wits and wills. It was a desert showdown for the ages, but the turning point came at El Alamein in 1942, when the British took a stand and pushed back the Italians. Chapter 4. Turning the Tide. The war wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for either side. There were moments of triumph and defeat that shifted the balance of power like a game of tug-of-war. First up, we got the Battle of Stalingrad in 1942-43. This was a brutal showdown between Germany and the Soviet Union that left both sides battered and bruised. Germany thought they had it in the bag, but the Soviets had other plans. It was a grueling battle that lasted almost 6 months, but in the end, the Soviets emerged victorious. Then we got D-Day on June 6, 1944. This was the Allied invasion of Normandy, France, and it was a turning point for sure. The Americans, British, and Canadian forces took a massive risk and stormed the beaches of Normandy. Despite heavy losses, they managed to establish a foothold in Europe, and it opened up a new front for the war. Finally, there was the Battle of Midway in 1942. This naval battle between the US and Japan was a clash of titans, but it was the US that came out on top. The American victory at Midway marked a turning point in the Pacific, shifting the momentum in the US's favor. Chapter 5, The Final Countdown. With the tides turning, the final curtain was set to fall on World War II. Germany's defeat was swift and brutal. In April 1945, Hitler took his own life as Soviet troops closed in on his bunker. Soon after, Germany surrendered, marking the end of the war in Europe. But the Pacific was a different story. Japan dug in their claws and refused to let go. Even after the US dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, it took a while for them to surrender. Finally, on September 2, 1945, Japan's official surrender aboard the USS Missouri marked the end of World War II. Chapter 6. A New World Order. With the war over, the world was left reeling from the devastation. The cost of the war was staggering, with over 70 million lives lost. Entire cities were reduced to rubble, and economies were in freefall. But amidst the destruction, there was hope. The United Nations was born in 1945 with the goal of preventing another global catastrophe. And then there was the Cold War, a new battle of wits and ideologies between the US and the Soviet Union. It was a clash of superpowers that would define the latter half of the 20th century. But hey, at least there was some good that came out of World War II. We got penicillin, jet fighters, computers, and rock and roll. Who knew war could be so fun? Chapter 7. Why it still matters today. So why should we care about World War II today? What does this ancient history have to do with our modern world? Well, let me tell you, more than you might think. The borders we see today, the political tensions, the technological advancements, even some aspects of pop culture, they all bear the scars and echoes of World War II. It's a reminder of the horrors of war, yes, but also of human resilience, innovation, and the constant struggle for peace. Remember the lessons of World War II, my friends, for they are timeless. Well, that's a wrap on World War II, folks. What a ride, huh? From the rise of the Axis powers to the epic battles and the ultimate showdown, we've seen it all. But remember, history doesn't just happen to people, it happens to you and me. We are the inheritors of this rich, messy, complicated past, and it's our job to learn from it, to honor it, and to shape it as we move forward together. So keep learning, keep questioning, and keep fighting for a better tomorrow. The world is watching. Thanks for joining me on this journey through time. If you liked this adventure, show us some love by hitting that thumbs up button and subscribing. Your support means everything to us. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the past. Because who knows, you might just find that it holds the key to our future. Thanks for joining me on this journey through time. If you liked this adventure, show us some love by hitting that thumbs up button and subscribing. Your support means everything to us. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the past, because who knows, you might just find that it holds the key to our future.